Hi there, Forest River owners. Today in your 2016 Forest River Wildwood Ultralight, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Furrion's tankless water heater. So if you've been out in your camper and all of a sudden your showers are getting colder and you've noticed you just can't enjoy yourself the way you used to because it's so cold, more than often it's probably your water heater that's gone bad. They go bad over time. When replacing one, there's a few things you'd want to keep in mind, and that's usually, well, how much water am I going to use? Was my old tanked unit, was that a big enough tank for me and everybody else that's in my camper? And then of course you would want to look at the energy efficiency. With a tankless unit, we can minimize the size of our unit here while maximizing the heat that we can deliver to our trailer. The tankless ones here should have no problem keeping up with the demand of everybody in our trailer here. So if you've got a larger family where that tank one, by the time, the first 2 or 3 people got in the shower, that last one wasn't very happy about what he was left with. With something like this here, it should be able to keep up with that heat for all of your passengers and everybody that's in your trailer here. Now you can get these water heaters in 4 different combinations. You can get just the tankless water heater by itself if you're replacing an existing Furrion unit and your door matches up properly. If you need to replace this from another manufacturer's and the door that you've got on there is definitely not going to work with this unit, you can get it with either a 16 by 16 door, 16 by 18, or an 18 by 18, whichever lines up best on your motorhome. Depending on the hole that's on your motorhome is going to determine which door is best for you. We're going to be using the 16 by 16 door today. Here on the inside, you can turn the unit on and off, as well as clean the filter. The door pops out like that and then just lifts off if you want to take it all the way off of there. Here on the inside, you've got your power switch as well as your fuse. So if your unit's not working, that's usually a good place to check first. If you hit the switch on the inside of your camper and you're like, well, I got no heat, probably come out here and double check to make sure. Maybe if you put it in storage last year, you might have flipped this off. Or if you were doing any wiring repairs or anything like that on your trailer, somebody could have bumped a wire or something, you can check your fuse as well. The baffle that's located here is removable. It simply just lifts up. Once your baffle is removed, you can access your filter here for cleaning. It's good for maintenance. And then right above that, you have an adjustment here for water flow, with maximum being far to the left and minimum far to the right. We're going to go ahead and leave it at a maximum setting. Included with the unit is a thermostat for controlling the temperature of the water. The thermostat here is remotely mounted. You can choose wherever you want to put it. Ours, we went ahead and hid in the cabinet because our customer figured, hey, once I set the temperature to what I like, I'm probably not going to adjust it again. So he's got it set in here, but you never know, maybe a couple years down the road, some things might change. You might like it a little bit warmer, a little bit cooler, and you can easily access to make those adjustments there. And this unit's able to keep up with your heating demands with a 2.4 gallon per minute output. Now we've determined this was going to be a great fit for our Forest River here, but these are designed to be installed in many different trailers out there. So first thing you'll want to do is follow along with us here. We're going to take some measurements here to help you make sure that you're getting the correct one for yours at home. Now before we begin our installation, you'll want to do some checks to verify you're going to be getting components that's going to fit, because nothing sucks more than buying your new water heater. You go to put it in and you find that, hey, it doesn't even hook up to my stuff. I'm gonna have to buy all these adapters and stuff. Now I'm sitting here waiting, trying to get all these parts and scrambling. So let's make sure we've got everything we need beforehand. So first thing, we're gonna find our water heater here. There's usually a door here on the side. It's got a vent on it in most cases. This is where ours is here. It's just behind our entryway door here and under the window where our kitchen is here. We're gonna open this up just to get a quick look on the inside here. We can see it's a little loose here. We're just kind of getting an idea here. So we can see there's our propane connection. It's always a good idea to kind of note where your connections are, because you're going to have to make connections to new units, and they're often in different places. So we can see ours is here. So we got to keep in mind, hey, this is here. Most of the time they connect up in the back. So am I going to have room to route this hose in the back? That's something we're going to be, this propane line, that's something we're going to be checking on the inside. The other thing, we want to check our measurements to see if our new unit is even going to fit. So we're just going to get a rough idea of how big this one is. About 14.5 by about 14.5. It's pretty standard size, but it is good to know that. And then it's also good to just we'll just throw this back up here, and then we'll double check the measurement on our door, because you often have to replace the door as well when you replace your water heater, unless you're doing like a direct replacement, because your vents aren't going to line up properly with the door. So we're just going to put that on there, and looks like we're not going to be too much bigger. Just under 15 inches, probably about 14 7/8 square there. So just keep those measurements in mind for when you're placing your new one. Now we're going to head inside into the kitchen, and we're going to assess the back of this to see if there's anything that we might need there when hooking up our new unit. So here we are on the inside, where here's our kitchen. That's the window just above our unit, right there above the cabinet. So we're going to take off this panel here and get a look back beside there. There's a couple of screws, one on each side. We're just going to use our Phillips bit to remove these. Now this is a little bit off to the side of where our unit's going to be, so we're probably going to have to give ourselves a better access than this, but we might have enough access here just to assess what's going on. If it stays in there, you can take one of your screws here and kind of put it in the hole to give you a little handle to pull it out. So here we can see inside our opening here, we can see there's our unit. So this is a good opening to be able to take some measurements, because we do want to check depth as well to see how deep the old unit is, to verify that our new one's going to have the right depth. But it's still pretty hard to see. So there's another cabinet door just to our left here. We're going to take that cabinet door off, and there's another panel behind it we're going to remove as well to get better access. So we'll just take the 4 screws out for our cabinet door here. And the main reason I'm taking the whole door off is because I want to be able to use this panel, and the door opens this way, so it would block our other opening. And there's a little latch mechanism here in the door while it's shut, so it should keep it from falling down on you if you just keep a little bit of pressure on it. And then after we remove the last one, we can just slide that off and set it aside. And then here on the inside, there's another panel right there. 2 screws, one at the top, one at the bottom, and this should give us plenty of access to our water heater now. So now that we've got access to the back here, we can really get a good look at our water lines and connections, and that's the next thing we want to pay attention to. If we look at these fittings here, we can see that it's a PEX line that goes into a plastic fitting, and then that plastic fitting is a male fitting that threads into the female portion here on our unit. So that's very important. We know that our old unit has female connection points at the back that requires a male end on our hose to thread into. So keep that in mind. A lot of the units have male on the back of the heaters, of your water heaters, so you need a female end on the other side, and that's usually how most of them are. So we've gone ahead and we're going to be putting in Furrion's tankless water heater. This one meets all of our measurement requirements. It's going to fit, and it should work out perfect for us. One of the things we do have to note, though, is that the connection points here on the back, where the hot water connects and where our cold water connects here, they do come with caps on them. I had removed the caps so I could use the caps to help me find the appropriate fitting I needed. So here's our fitting here, because since these are male on our water heater side here on our new unit, and it's female on our old unit, we're going to have to adapt our ends here over to be able to hook up to our water lines. So you can get these at your local hardware store. It's a 1/2 inch to match up with this one. And the old style that's in there, those ones were 1/2 inch as well, so when we thread those out, they'll thread right into here. And we'll use some thread tape to seal everything up. Before we go to remove our old unit, we're gonna make sure we've got our propane turned all the way off. So just double check that. And then you also wanna make sure that you've got power removed from your old one. You don't want this one to be heating up and then drain out all your water, so that way we don't have a big old mess when we're going to take this one out. So we're back here on the outside with our door open. We know we got our propane turned off. We can go ahead and loosen this one up. We're using a 13/16 wrench to loosen it. And when I first put my wrench on there and I moved it, you might have saw that this kind of flexed just a little bit. If you're putting any pressure on it, you see it start to flex like that. If it doesn't break loose immediately, you'll want to grab yourself another wrench and put it here on top to make sure you hold that, because we don't want to flex that too far. Ours broke loose right after that though, so we're good to go. All right, our connection there is disconnected. We'll probably have to push that through or pull it from the other side there to get it to that grommet. We'll now come in here with our pliers, and we've got our water drained out and everything, so we're ready to take these loose. Just grab the end and then just start turning it with your pliers there. Oftentimes, once you've got it kind of broke loose, you can usually just reach in there by hand and unthread it the rest of the way. It's kind of up to you. It depends. If it still feels too tight for you, continue with your pliers. And there we go. And now that we've got that one loose, we're just gonna turn that up to keep it out of our way. And now we're gonna remove the other one below it. You'll see there's a bunch of shut-off valves at the back here. We've got each of those closed too. After we drained everything, keep all those valves closed, and that'll really help minimize how much moisture leaks out back here. All right, when we pulled that hose off of there, there was more water left in the tank than we anticipated, so we grabbed some rags there. We make sure we stuck it down there to sop that up. I took the hose and I just stuck it back in there real fast once I saw there was a bunch of water to stop the flow. So now we're just gonna take that back out of there because there's really nothing we can do for the water that's in the tank here. I mean, we've drained it as far as it will drain. It's kind of what's stuck in there. So we'll sop all that up with rags here. Bath towels work really great as well if you're doing this at home. Now next, I would normally unhook the wires from the inside, but the shape of the compartments that we have and access to here, the wires are running off the back side here, and they're kind of lumped up with some other wiring that's on our RV, and we don't want to accidentally cut wires to something that's not for our water heater. So we're going to go ahead and take the screws loose here on the outside so we can slide it out a little bit. We know it's still attached to wires, so we're not going to pull it all the way out just yet, but we need to be able to figure out the appropriate wires that need to be removed. So we're going to remove all the screws here from the outside. And when you get down to your last two, I saved the two at the bottom here. We're just gonna loosen these ones first. And then our door here just kind of lifts right off of there. We can just set that aside and then remove these last two screws. So now from here, we're gonna take a plastic trim panel tool. You'll want something that's fairly stiff. This one's a pretty rigid plastic tool, and that one that also has a decently thin kind of a bladed end. And we're gonna take it and we're just gonna force it right in there, just kind of past the seal. And we're using a plastic one here so we don't scratch or damage anything. And we're just gonna kind of work our way around until we've broken the seal all the way around. We've just about worked our way all the way around. And once you've got it broke loose all the way around here, you should be able to start walking it out. And again, we're going to take our time. We're just going to do this slowly because we need to inspect to see where some wiring is located so we can disconnect it. Additionally, we've got our propane line here. We're going to try and get that worked through as well. We weren't able to pull it through from the backside because it's all siliconed up here on the backside, so we pulled it out just enough here so I can break all this silicone loose from the backside and get that pushed through. And we've almost got this off the back here so we can get this pushed through. This silicone here is much thicker. It's almost closer to like a hot glue or something than what was on the outside, so I did switch over to a screwdriver. And we just need to get enough of it off there to be able to push our line through. And now that we've got all that silicone removed off the backside, we're able to get that pushed through onto the inside. So we can then focus on our wiring. Once again, we're kind of hitting on the styrofoam. We'll have to push the unit back in to feed it around the styrofoam, but we've got it loose from that grommet. So after pulling it out here, we can finally see our wires here. These 4 wires here, they trace back to a module that's located just behind our panel. So we're gonna go in there, we're gonna disconnect those to get those disconnected. That should likely leave us with power and ground, but we're gonna test these, but we're gonna wait until we have this disconnected first before we test these, because it's gonna try to activate the pilot light and stuff while that module's connected. So let's eliminate that first. So here you can see the thermostat that we're gonna be disconnecting. We're going to remove the connector coming off the bottom of it, and there's also that kind of orangish colored wire there, that's the pilot light wire. It looks kind of like a spark plug wire. That unplugs from the side of it here with a little spade terminal. We're going to unplug it from there as well. So we're just going to reach up here, feel for any release tabs. There was none, it just pulls right off of there. And then here's that spade terminal on the side. Pull that off of there as well. So we've gone ahead and removed those. Now we're going to check to see if we have power here. So we had power, the first time I checked them, I had power on both my red and my yellow. And that's why we wanted to disconnect that module to narrow it down. No longer we have power on the yellow, but we do still have power on our red here. So we know that this is our power constant directly from the switch. And the white wire here, I checked this one as well. I just took the other end of my lead here. Instead of hooked to ground on the opposite end, I hooked it to power, and then I was able to probe this one to see that that was ground. So we're going to be using both power and ground here. For our new units, we'll probably cut it right here on the other side of these little crimps that they have here. But we want to make sure we kill power here before we cut it. So I'm going to turn that switch off, double check to make sure that power is gone, and then I can cut those wires. So now we're ready to trim our wires. We're going to trim the red wire on the other side of the crimp there, so that way the crimp will stay with the unit. We'll then crimp our ground wire, and we're going to crimp it the same way. We'll then snip the blue wire from out inside of the crimp so we can leave any connections that the motorhome may have to this wire stay there. And then we can put a little bit of electrical tape around that just to help ensure nothing could potentially short on that in the future. At this point now, we can remove the entire unit. Next, we're going to remove all the outer sealant from around the outside. We're going to use a plastic trim tool to do this so we don't scratch it up. And we don't have to get 100% of it off of there, but we just need to get the bulk of it off, the majority out of the way, so we can seal this properly. Before we install our new unit, we're going to take some butyl tape and we're going to put it along the inside lip all the way across the inside of our unit, making sure to do this all the way around so that way it'll seal up our unit to the side of our motorhome or trailer. And we just want to make sure we get it all the way edge to edge on each side. So now we've got our new unit all prepared. We can bring it in place and just slide it in. It is tight, but it will fit. You might have to move it up and down a little bit to get it over the lips and any kind of screw ends that might be sticking out the bottom. Now you might notice here the gap. This has some really deep corrugation on the side of it. When we go to screw this down, it is going to pull it in, and that butyl tape is going to help fill up a lot of those gaps. But there's also just like some damage to it here. It looks like at the bottom, looks like it's been hit. It's just not straight. So we're going to take some clear silicone once we're done and go around the outer edge. You may or may not need to do this at home. It probably is going to determine based on the condition of your trailer. This one here, due to the damage, I just know it's not going to seal, especially down here at the bottom. It's all pushed in. Well, now screw it down. Now it does not come with hardware, so we're going to reuse the old hardware to get it into place. Our front cover here does have a baffle. We don't need to have it inserted now. We can insert this later, so let's just set that off to the side for now. And we can see here our screw holes. We're going to try to get all of these to line up. These ones here. And that looks pretty well lined up with all of our marks. So now we'll just take our screws and we'll put them into place. I like to put one in here first, and then after I get that one in, I'll kind of adjust for level because you can kind of pivot off of the one screw. And you may not be going into the same screw holes that your old one was, because it's pretty common that these ones are going to be slightly inset or outset a little bit from where your old ones used to be. And we can actually just use these corrugated lines right here as a good little guide to get it even all the way across. And we've got them all running. I'm just going to go around and make sure that they are all drawn in tight. And we can now insert our baffle. It just presses into place and then slides down. So now we're going to head on inside and get everything hooked up. We're going to start with our water lines. So we got that adapter here to go from the male fitting that's on our new unit to allow us to connect to the male fitting that's on our water lines there, because you can't have male go into male, you need a male and a female. So this is a female adapter here. That way it's got a female on one side to screw onto the male end, and then our male hose water line can screw into this side. We're going to be using some thread sealant here to ensure that we don't have any leaks. We're using some from Loctite. You can get this here at eTrailer, so you can add this to your cart if you need some. This comes in it's like a glue stick type form, so it makes it pretty easy to apply, and it's also quite a bit less mess than a lot of the other styles. And I like sealants way more than I like thread tape, because with thread tape you have to put it on a very specific direction, or else when you're screwing this on it's going to unravel. It's a lot harder to work with. That tape really kind of wants to unroll when you're trying to use it and stuff, and you end up wasting a lot of it. This seems to go a lot further, and it's just overall gives you a better sealing than what a thread tape would. So we're going to apply this to both male ends. That's going to include the backside of our water heater fitting as well as the water pipes, and then we can thread this on, because you obviously can't get it inside of the female end here. So after we've got our sealant applied to the male threads, we can take our component then and thread it on there. Go ahead and snug up our line. And when you're snugging these up here, it's a good idea to have yourself another wrench on here to keep these fittings from spinning. Whenever you're working with these ones where it's not a hex, it makes it hard to tell what size to grab. Well, you just use an adjustable wrench to hold it as we're tightening it down. So now I've got my adjustable here. We're going to go tighten that down. Now it's going to be real tight in here with both my hands in here and the cameraman. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this tightened down, and then we'll show you what it looks like when we're done here. So now I've gone ahead and got those tightened down. After I did the hot side here, I went over onto the other side, kind of at the lower corner there, and I put on the union, the adapter that we need for that one as well. I applied the sealant to it and tightened it down the same way. There wasn't something to hold on that side with an adjustable wrench, so you do want to be a little bit careful when tightening that one down. Be careful not to over tighten, since you don't have a way to support the fitting on the other side. Then I applied sealant to the hose ends, so that way I can thread those in. And we're just going to grab the ends here with this PEX type material. It'll just rotate. So we'll just thread that in there. We'll try to get it as far as we can by hand. And that's probably about it. And then we're going to have to switch over to, again, the adjustable wrench to hold the fitting. And I'm going to use a pair of channel locks to tighten the plastic portion. So we got our adjustable. We're going to slide that in there. And then this is our channel locks. We should be able to get that on there. And then I'm going to tighten it first with just the channel locks. And as soon as I see any kind of movement out of the unit, then I'm going to put my adjustable on there. With our water lines connected, we can get the propane line connected now. This is our line here coming down. You will have to bend it just a little bit. It is flexible enough. We don't want to do any extreme bends here, and we didn't need to bend it that much to get it into place, just a little bit there. We can remove the rubber cap and then thread our line into place. When we tighten this down, we want to make sure we use a wrench on both the nut here on our line and then also one on the unit to prevent the fitting from turning. We don't need to put any sealant on this because it's a flared fitting, so the threads don't do the sealing, it's the flare that does the sealing. So after we got our hot line connected, we went to connect the cold side, but the unit had such a different location for its cold connection point than our original that our hose wasn't going to reach it. So we used a part from Camco here, it's a little hose whip, to complete our extension from where the hoses are to our new unit here. And with this one, it does have gaskets in it, so you can just tighten these ones down. You don't have to put any sealant in there. The gaskets seal it all up. Lastly, we just need to hook up our wires. We'll start with our power and ground circuit. They are labeled here on our unit, which makes it easy to identify those there. We've already identified them here on our trailer, so we know which is which here. So we can go ahead and make our connections, hooking our positive to positive and our ground to ground. The red wire is going to be our positive, so we'll strip it back And we're going to use a butt connector here, just crimp it in place. After we crimp this side, we'll grab our positive wire off of the unit and we'll connect the other end of this red wire to that, which is going to be the black wire off of our unit. Here we can see it fully inserted and we're able to crimp it down. We'll then repeat that for our ground circuit and our 2 blue wires from our thermostat. It doesn't matter which one of these connects to which on the thermostat, as long as both of those go to the thermostat. You may need some excess blue wire in order to extend the wire from the unit to where you want to place your thermostat. So now that we've got all of our connections made here, we got the power and ground hooked up, we've got our thermostat wires extended, we're now going to route these over to where we're going to mount the thermostat. In this particular trailer here, we're going to route it actually just right over here to our, underneath our sink right here. There's a cross beam right here at the top that we can use for our mounting point for our thermostat. We'll probably drill a small hole right here underneath the beam to pass the wires through to make it cleaner. And this way it'll keep it kind of out of the way. Because really for the most part, once you install your thermostat here for your water heater, you're going to set it to the temperature that you like, and you're probably never going to change it again. So that's why we're going to hide it underneath the cabinet here. It's a pretty big thermostat, keep it out of the way, also keep it out of sight since it is so large. Now if you need extra wire or butt connectors, you can get those at e-trailer here. Just add those to your cart on checkout. So now we're going to mount up our thermostat. This is the back panel. It just twist it to pull it off of your thermostat. The cutout here is for your wires to pass through, and that's the bottom. It's labeled top there. It's kind of hard to see, but it is top with an arrow pointing up. So we're going to get this guy mounted now. You will have to provide your own hardware for mounting. We're going to start with the horizontal screw here, and we're going to run it into place. All right, and then we chose the horizontal one there, because then we can pivot it like this until we're roughly level. And then we can run our other screw in. And this one's slotted, so even if we're not perfectly level here, we've got adjustment there, so we can fine tune that before we're all done. And you want to brace this beam here. All right, and that's pretty much it. We're going to loosen it up a little bit here just to be able to tweak the final position to make it a little bit more level. That looks pretty good right there. Double check the other side and snug them both down. And now towards the bottom here, we're going to drill a hole through the opening so we can get our wires to feed through it. You just need a drill bit big enough for your wires. We're using a 3/8 drill bit. And again, we're going to want to support the wall here. After you got your holes drilled, we can poke our wires in through the back. Just poke those through the hole. It'd be a lot easier to make your connections on this side, and then we can poke them back. That's why I kind of went with a little bit larger of a hole, because when we go to put butt connectors on here, if you do a hole just big enough for your wires, and then you connect them on this side of the wall, you're not going to be able to push them back through that hole. So oversizing it a little bit is kind of a good thing. So there we go, and then we're just going to even out the length of wire that we've got here with our shorter one, and that way we've got plenty of excess in the future if you ever need to access it again. So now that we've got those pulled through, we're going to strip each one of these back and put a butt connector on them. They're just going to connect directly to the blue wires coming off of your thermostat. It doesn't matter which one connects where, as long as both of them are connected to the thermostat. And I like to put the butt connectors on the wall side first here. And now we'll take our thermostat, and once again, they put way too much strip on the wire there. We're going to reduce that down and then connect it to the other side of our butt connector. And same thing with our other one here. We'll make our connection to this one. And then just push our wires back in. When you push them in, depending on the size that you cut out, you're probably gonna have to push in one butt connector at a time. And then we just line it up with the slots and twist it to click it in place. So now that we've got everything connected, at this point you are ready to put your panels back together, put some water pressure to it, check for any leaks, and then you can hit your switch to turn your water heater on. Make sure that everything lights up and everything's looking good there. If you have no leaks, you can put your panels back on and you're all done. So now that we know everything's working properly, we can come back out here and finish up sealing up the outside of this. Now it does say in your instructions not to use silicone. It's referring to the seal on the inside. We use butyl tape on that location. It's okay to use silicone here on the outside to fill up the gaps, and I would recommend it if you see gaps like this, because that's just a place for critters, dirt, and a bunch of things to get in there. It's going to eventually eat up your paneling and other stuff. So moisture is deadly when it's trapped in a location. So we're just going to run a bead here along the outside, kind of fill up the gaps. So in these bigger gap portions, I'm slowing down, put a little bit more in there, and going a little bit faster over the next sections. And we can take our finger and smooth this out once we're done. After you have city water hooked up, you want to test for leaks, and we did, and we actually had a leak. I wanted to show you guys the new lines that we've got down here. The lines that we used, we just couldn't get them to seal, even with sealant on them. They just didn't want to work out. So we ended up putting new supply lines on it. You can see the stainless steel line there. We just got that at our local hardware store. And then instead of using the threaded fittings that were on there, the plastic ones, we ended up just getting some quick connect fittings that we could slide PEX right into, and that seemed to take care of all of our leak issues. So now that we've got everything installed, we want to check it out to make sure it works. We've hooked up city water to it, and the first thing you want to do is just kind of run each of your hot and cold separately, together, one at the other. That's going to get all the air through your system and out, and you want to get a nice stream like this. So once you've achieved a nice stream like this, you can then go ahead and open up your propane tanks, turn on your water heater now, and we can verify it's heating up. You may need to adjust the thermostat to your appropriate temperature for whatever you want. We're just going to leave it where it was at, and it's about 115 degrees. And I can already feel that it's starting to warm up. So we'll give it a minute there just to let it warm up since we just turned it on. We'll go ahead and get a temperature reading to see where we're at here. Try to get it right on the water coming out. And we're pretty close. Looks like we're hitting about 104. And it's set to 115, but that's what's coming out of the unit. By the time you get through your pipes, you are going to have a little bit of loss. Looks like through the pipes we're losing maybe 8 or 9 degrees through the pipes. But it definitely feels nice and warm here. We can see the steam coming up. And if this isn't to your liking, you can bump it up or down in your thermostat to make it hotter or cooler. And that completes our installation of Furrion's tankless water heater on our 2016 Forest River Wildwood Ultralight.